5 universal factors that come from the sun. When the sun radiates in a certain universal factor, the sunset and the sunrise, an hour after sunrise, and an hour before up to sunset, there are multiple things that happen when you align.
Sunset. Universal force, B factor energy, is where paradoses, a technique involved taking in sunlight, comes in. It was said that Yeshua was given this energy of divinity, which was initiated by John the Baptist, eventually turning him into the Christ. B factor energy is a counterforce to A factor energy, which creates an urge to reunite with the source of all creation. This force is for all spiritual evolution, the dominant urge in consciousness. B factor is called the immortal factor and the Christ consciousness. Sun gazing at sunset and an hour before will help you connect to higher levels of consciousness, raising your vibration.
Said, "What is man? The sun's light, when he unfolds it, depends on the organ that beholds it. All of us receive sunlight and moonlight and energy from the stars and the planets, but not all of us take advantage of the energy from the stars and the planets to awaken the sleeping energy that's inside of us." He drew a very interesting wood sketch that showed a human being sleeping inside of a cocoon, very much like a caterpillar. So you could interpret this image as the normal masses that get the same type of sunlight, but don't take advantage of its transformative power. This human, also getting sunlight, has taken advantage of its transformative power and clearly is being able to begin to manifest something that this human has not, if you follow the metaphor. And another woodcut, also by William Blake, it shows a human being with wings arising from an egg-shaped form. So depending on how you use the energy of sunlight, sunlight can allow a human being to develop structures and forms that will allow us to develop a light body. In these Tibetan woodcuts, what you see are these Tibetan entities, lamas, or Rinpoches, floating around in what looks like an egg-shaped structure, and they're floating in the clouds quite clearly. And there are at least 2 of them. Maybe this is a 3rd one over here. This is another shape of a person who has transformed into light. What we see clearly is that this person is floating in the clouds, and there are other beings just like him floating around in structures that in the Kabbalah we might call Merkaba or Merkaba. These structures are part of the body of light, which is something that the ancient Tibetan tradition teaches that all humans can develop. This body of light is something that by taking in sunlight, doing certain practices, we can develop the Jalus Pa, or the body of light. As a result, the Jalus Pa, or the body of light, is an entity that all of us carry inside of us that is dormant, not unlike the dormant energy of a caterpillar. The Jalus Pa can cause the person to begin to appear transparent, as this being is, and develop an egg-shaped structure around them, and beings close to them can also begin to develop similar structures or bodies of light. The Jalus Pa, or the body of light, is present in many of our ancient philosophies, ancient texts, and ancient cultures. It can also be called the diamond body. It can be called the resurrection body. It can also be called the golden body or the Christ body. They are bodies that all of us have inside of us that primarily remain dormant. One of the things that many of our religious institutions don't want us to know is that all humans have this capacity. These capacities are chronicled in our ancient cultures and texts and writings for a reason. It's because all of us have this potential. It's not something that is weird or unusual. All of us have this potential inside of us. So that if we bother to develop it and to use it and to grow it, it's something that we can begin to manifest and take advantage of to avoid the question of physical death and transformation entirely. Energetically, let's talk about why the potential of the body of light is so important and how it can develop. Because you might say, well, the human being only has so much energy. When your body ages and passes, there's no more energy left. Well, the reality is we only use a very, very, very small amount of the energy in the body. Each human cell is said to have about 1.7 volts of electrical potential. Sodium, potassium, and other elements in the body account for this electrical potential that exists in the cells. This potential can be measured through EEGs or EKGs, or you can feel it in the life force in the body. But if you multiply this potential by the estimated 1 quadrillion cells in the body, the total electrical voltage potential of the body is over 1.7 quadrillion volts. That is a lot of power in the body. In a very famous movie, The Matrix, one of the characters, Morpheus, talked about how the human body is capable of producing tremendous amounts of energy. Even if you took the mass of the human body and turned it into nuclear power, there'd be enough energy and the mass of the cells of the body to run a large city like New York City for over a year, just in one person's cells. So we have tremendous energy and potential in our cells that we mostly don't use. That energy stays locked up and just sits there for the most part. Carl Jung said, "Our greatest treasure is not our natural possessions or money, but is that which is hidden deep within our own subconscious. It is that dark, unused part of ourself that is in fact light that is unconscious of itself." We have light energy, very powerful energy inside of our bodies that we are totally unconscious of. We don't know what this power can do. We don't know what its potentials are. We don't know how to use it, and for the most part, we ignore it. Our greatest treasure in life is the energy that exists inside of us that is unlimited. We've all heard stories of great masters that can manifest food or jewelry or gold or anything they like just by thinking about it. And we ask, where does that kind of energy come from? How can you make something out of nothing? Well, as it would appear, within the human body, we have enough energy to create anything that we choose just by thinking about it. If we learn to tap into that energy, if we learn to use it, it would be a greater treasure to us than any amount of gold or money or jewelry or anything that we could discover, because just by thinking about it, you could make gold out of thin air. By thinking about it, you could make a diamond the size of your fist. By thinking about it, you could create a meal for yourself just by waving your hand with the energy that is stored in your consciousness, in your physical body, and in your aura. That dark, unused part of ourselves that we're unconscious of is our greatest power. And with the Body of Light study, we want to try to help unlock a part of that power. The powers of the light body transfer from one incarnation to another. If the work remains unfinished in one incarnation, its progress is carried over to the next with the memory of how to activate these powers. The work will continue. If we start working on the Body of Light in one lifetime and somehow get interrupted, injury, illness, accident, death, laziness, whatever, human DNA, your human unconsciousness will not let you stop. The goal of coming into this world is not living and dying and bearing children and having a great time and saying what a nice life and then expiring and moving on. The goal of coming into this world for all of us is to create a body of light. If we're able to create this body of light, we can then move on from one incarnation to the next. But we have the option of not just going into an astral form, or a psychic form, or a lunar form, or a fourth dimensional form. We can move our consciousness into a form that has a higher potential than any of those, and also has the great benefit and luxury of being totally immortal. The powers of the light body, the impetus or the force of the light body, moves us forward in these incarnations to the point that we can become totally immortal. The Mahabharata says that Arjuna in his journey aboard a divine chariot that shone brilliant like the sun, traveled through the galaxy to visit his father Indra, who was chief of the gods. And he saw wondrous chariots by the thousands out in space, shining with their own light. This was a book that was written thousands of years ago, and what it shows is that a being who was able to transform himself into energy, Arjuna, saw that other beings accompanied him when he traveled through space in their own chariots of light, that they had already made this transformation, that they had already overcome the transformation of the death of the physical body, and they were able to go where they liked just by thinking about it. Think about it. Thinking about a place that you want to go, and then appearing in that place in a form that allows you to be physical or whatever you choose to be, or invisible, and enjoying that place. Think about shopping in Paris in the morning, having dinner in Tokyo, and then catching a show in New York all in the same day just by thinking about it. Think about shopping on a distant planet or just visiting a star just by holding that in your consciousness. There are beings who are doing that right now. Just like what we see in the movies, these aren't ideas or vain Hollywood.
Had an effect on the global temperature? Yes, but not enough to create what's going on. What's going on is actually a cycle. It's a global cycle. We know this from ice core data. You go to the ice core data, you pull up an ice core, it goes back, every time you go down a couple of inches, you go down thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it tells you all the temperatures. She can back me up, she's an archaeologist. All the temperatures, all the warming and cooling periods that ever existed on Earth. And right now, this warming period is not even the warmest it's ever been. We're not even close to the warmest warming cycle. So don't let the fear mongers get you with all this global warming stuff. This is a natural cycle, and the reason for the warming is because we are living in a binary solar system. There's two suns.
Right,
suns.
I heard that.
And so we have another brown dwarf which is orbiting our yellow star, and every time it gets closer on its approach, the gravitational waves ripple in, creates friction, warms up the cores of planets and moons, and creates global warming on every planet and moon in the entire solar system, not just Earth. We know this because the ice caps are melting on other moons and other planets in the solar system, as well as cores we melt. Now we can test the core of Saturn. They know that the core of Saturn is even melting. So we know this is a universal effect, not just Earth. Okay, so don't let the fear mongers get to you. But all that just goes to show you the kind of activity that goes on geologically in space and on planets that can create these kind of disasters.
Wow.
And their golden age came to an end with the Younger Dryas.